Hello everybody, Brad Johnson here, and I'm excited that when January comes around, the very first episode of the Signposts on January 4th is going to be taking place. And I'm happy to share a little bit of an experience I had last night when I was trying to sleep. This is also happening with my partner as well too. I just kept waking up constantly throughout the night, and it just felt like my whole body was going through these powerful surges. It's like taking a device with the three-prong device and just plugging that particular device into an enormous generator and just feeling these incredible power surges. And I was getting that last night constantly. It was very, very difficult for me to get a good night's sleep last night, so I'm not too sure if that's been happening with you guys as well too. Brianne, my partner, also felt the exact same thing. It just felt like there was so much energy just dumping on the planet last night. And this morning, Brianne came up to me and showed me a video about faces in the moon, faces around the moon, and that these particular faces were actually quite crystal clear. She was looking on TikTok, and she was seeing some of these videos that people were taking recently, just in regards to these faces, apparitions that were appearing around the moon. And I was looking at that and said, oh, well, that's quite fascinating. It's very, very interesting. And what came to mind when I was looking at that and saying, oh, these are the faces of the Watchers. How wonderful. This is beautiful. This is great to see. And that's really what came to me particularly, because Adronis has talked about the Watchers. We did a episode about that not too long ago on my YouTube channel, talking about the Watchers, right? The Watchers have many different names. You can call them Elohim, you can call them Anunnaki, you can call them angels, you can call them high angels, you can call them archangels, you can call them creator gods, right? What have you. But that was just a very beautiful feeling. And I know there have been certain people, of course I'm not saying any names of course, but there are certain people who will look at what I've just talked about pertaining to Watchers, or Elohim, or angels, or Anunnaki, or high angels, archangels, creator gods, what have you. And it's just kind of funny to me that they would talk about these beings as if they know each and every single one of them. It just kind of makes me laugh. Of course, last week I talked about that on the Signposts on YouTube, about that, where, you know, some people were coming up to me and asked me, well, Brad, there's some people online that are just bashing angels and just bashing Elohim. And I think one of the best things I could say is, oh, do they know them? Do they know these beings? Well, probably not. They just hear from somebody that they're bad, and then they start to create a rhetoric that they're bad. And I say, well, that doesn't get you anywhere. That's like me bad-mouthing somebody whom I've never met. Okay, maybe I read about them in a book. Maybe there's another expert online who's saying all of these terrible things, and then all of a sudden, I guess I need to do the exact same thing. I guess I need to bash them into the ground as well too, because this dude in a book did it, because this dude on a YouTube channel did it, or whatever it may be. And this becomes just a mess. It just turns into a mess. And everything that I talk about, that I discuss, with all respect, I look into these things and I actually start to tune in. Actually, just a couple of days ago, I was actually just tuning into an Elohim collective, and the love that they have is so incredibly profound. The beauty that they are is so incredibly profound. And basically, like we said, for all 8 billion human beings, we are all going to have splinters of perspective pertaining to the words that we hear and how we decide to perceive them. Whereas one person may see this word, for example, angel, or Elohim, or extraterrestrial, whatever it may be, as something beautiful and wonderful and expansive and blissful, whereas another may hear those words and say, oh my God, it's the devil. Oh my God, it's horrible. Oh my God, they're evil. Oh my God, this. Oh my God, that. And so on and so forth. And it's not to say that any person is right or wrong, because then again, we just go into a polarity. We go into duality. We go into binary talk, right? This person says they're this, and this person says they're that. Well, that's not going to get you anywhere, right? What are you trying to prove by basically saying, I don't want to look at this, or I don't want to look at that, or somebody said that this is what they're like, and you shouldn't be around them? Like, what are you trying to prove by saying that? It just comes down to the point, like I said, where you're bad-mouthing a person whom you haven't even met. You're bad-mouthing an energy that you've never had any particular type of contact with. Or let's say that you have had a contact with one particular being, right? You know, I saw this 7-foot reptilian, and he had these huge jaws and telling me he wanted to eat me. And then I woke up from this astral experience. Finally got away from the guy. But then again, if there's any other particular type of reptilian, if there's any other particular type of being like that, I am instantly going to profile them as being evil. They want to eat me. You know, they're over 7 feet tall. They got a jaw like an alligator, and they want to eat me, and then they want to spit me out, or whatever it may be. All reptilians are evil, right? Or I had this being that I thought was an angel because it was very luminescent, and it shared all these pretty words, but then it took me into some sort of space, and it courted to me, and it started to suck out my life force energy and all of that, and then it revealed itself to be a very dark being. All angels are evil. Simple as that. All angels are evil. Oh. Don't talk to them because, you know, because of my perspective, you'll be doomed. Do you see the surface-based fear in such stories, in such perspectives, right? And again, we are always forgetting the interconnectedness that we have to all life. People seem to forget this. It just amazes me that they keep telling me that they're the most spiritual person there is, if I could use that lingo. And yet when these particular situations arise, they panic like an 8-year-old child that has to get up and get ready for school in the morning, right? It just becomes a particular type of adolescent behavior where you're just looking at these situations because either one, you don't know what you even talk about. Number two, you may have had a mild experience with that, but then again, you're pointing the finger towards the elements of your life because you lack understanding of what is attempting to be shown to you. And this happens so often. And this goes back into early 2009 when I was getting in the middle of conversations of, again, people talking about reptilians, talking about the Draco. Stopping for somebody here at the console. Talking about the Draco, or talking about Orion beings, or talking about anybody else. And it's, oh, you know, they're just all evil, and the reptilians are evil, and the Draco are here to eat us, and all of this and all of that. And when I said, well, some of my own experiences, because I've connected with some of the Draco, and some of them are very, very loving and beautiful beings. And some people were almost like, had like something just caught in their throat when I was saying stuff like that, right? Well, Brad, come on, aren't all Dracos evil? I mean, all Dracos and all reptilians and all Orions and all this, aren't they all evil? Oh, how can you say that stuff, right? And then we come back into square one once again, just over the years. This just continues to, it's like a hopscotch, right? Just continues to come back, and somebody who has a popular following, or quite a few people who have quite a lot of popular followings start saying something, and it opens up a can of worms. But of course, a lot of these things need to happen, because what I do notice is a lot of people just cling to these experts like gum to a shoe, and they just hang on their every word until something is said, and then again that can of worms is open. Right? So it's also just encouraging people to think for yourselves, to look into these things with yourself, regardless of what another person says about it. Right? If I was basically following certain experts and trying to hang on their every word, I wouldn't have been able to discover anything. I certainly wouldn't have been able to discover Adronis if I was following that. Not being able to connect with Adronis, oh, it's an extraterrestrial, oh, don't talk to ETs, ETs are all evil and they're horrible and you shouldn't be talking to extraterrestrials and blah, 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 blah. And I would have never been able to connect in that way. Never would have been able to have that kind of connection. So again, this is where we get into these particular types of debates, conflicts, about how a certain person perceives another being. All right, well, of course, you can share perspective. And then it just gets to the point where, oh no, anything that represents that race, anything that represents that civilization is evil, it's horrible, is trying to usurp you, is trying to do all these things. Never talk to them because you regret it and you'll probably end up dying. Now, that would be no more different if I was to be, for example, an off-worlder. And I look at the Earth for the very first time. And I look at all of the human beings on that planet, all 8 billion of them. I can just see them out the window. But I've never talked to these beings, but I've heard from all of my colleagues exactly what they're like. So what are the human beings like? Well, they're stubborn, they're arrogant, they're ignorant, they're as fragile as a broken eggshell, they don't know how to take care of themselves, they rely on a particular type of dictatorship government, they aren't willing to heal themselves, they aren't able to listen to their hearts, they pollute their planet, they start a bunch of wars over political mumbo-jumbo and religious mumbo-jumbo, and they're constantly at odds with each other. Oh my God, these humans sound absolutely evil. Yeah, they are. They're absolutely evil. We need to wipe every single one of them out, because none of them are good at all. They deserve to be wiped out, and I think their planet's going to be a hell of a lot happier when every single human hits the floor, because this is exactly what my colleagues are saying. So guys, how does that make you feel? When you look at an off-world civilization who has basically just bashed you into the ground, yet they never had a chance to even get to know you. They never had a chance to even talk to one of us, to talk to a fellow human being, to get to know what they're like. They just read the reports. They just read the books. They just listen to their colleagues' disclosure of what their colleagues believe the human race is all about. And they have immediately made up their mind about the human race, saying that every single one of you guys are basically like parasites. You don't take care of yourself, you don't take care of each other, you don't take care of your planet, and that every single one of you must be as evil gets. How would that make you feel? I imagine you're probably going to be getting into some debates. I'm pretty sure you're going to be offended by those accusations. I believe you're going to want to stand up for yourself. And I believe you're going to say, well, that is nothing but a bunch of innuendo and hypotheses and rumor. And you're looking at other people that maybe you've seen do bad things, and now you're immediately judging me, thinking that I'm going to be the kind of person that is going to do those sort of things as well too. Well, human race, and you need to take a good look at yourself, because again, if we're seeing certain people on the planet that are immediately just defaming any particular type of being that they have absolutely no rapport with, no relationship with, but they're just doing it because this is what they've heard from the grapevine, then you have, again, a bunch of adolescent immaturity of someone who doesn't know what the heck they're talking about. And again, if it's something where you are actually looking into these things, you are actually talking to these beings, you are actually starting to go within and connect with them, rather than yielding to your own fear and looking at a bunch of surface-based tenacity about something that you've heard from somebody else, or something that you've heard from a book, or something that you've heard from a video, or something that you've heard, again, from the grapevine. Until you actually go in and actually start to look at these things for yourself, are you going to know what's actually going on. Because again, this is where ignorance runs so rampant upon the planet, is we don't even bother to even open up and talk to these beings, right? From my own perspective, and the best way that I can share it, I've opened up and I've talked to these particular types of beings. It's not the first time I've talked to angels. It's not the first time I've talked to Elohim. It's not the first time I've talked to Anunnaki. It's not the first time I've talked to reptilians. It's not the first time I've talked to off-worlders, right? And again, I will only magnetically bring forward those particular type of beings in association to my own magnetism, to understand exactly what they represent to me. But nonetheless, that's what I'm doing. And there has never come a point in my life where I just look at a person and think that every single other person is like that. Where I just look at a being and think every single other being is like that. Because that is being completely ignorant to the nature about how life itself is. Life itself is full of uniqueness. It is not full of equality. Brad, what do you mean by that? It's not full of equality. How can you have equality when everything is unique, right? Sure, we have a sentience. Sure, we share the planet, but not a single one of you are equal to each other. What does that mean? How can we not be equal to each other? Because of your uniqueness, because of that unique design that you are, right? You are that unique snowflake. And in that sense, yes, we are all mortal beings, but that does not relate to a differentiation pertaining to equality, right? Yes, we are men and women and children. We are seniors, we are adults, we are teenagers, we are young children, we are toddlers, we are infants. We all hold the human design, right? Which holds similarity, but not equality. It's our uniqueness that we really need to cherish. And the fact that you are all unique is far greater than you being all equal. Because if we were basically looking at ourselves as all equal, and this is the misunderstanding that I too have come to realize, if you were looking at everybody being equal, there would be no uniqueness, right? None of you are equal to each other. None of you are equal to life. Life is a smorgasbord. It is a plethora of uniqueness, right? It is your uniqueness that you truly cherish. Because if we were all equal, we'd all have the same opinion, right? To be equal, what does that really mean? If I am equal to you, what does that mean? Well, basically that would tell me that if I'm equal to this person, then really we just have so much together that there's really nothing that sets us apart, right? None of us are equal. All of us are unique. Because if you were looking at equality, if you were looking at the nature of how every single being in this universe is equal to each other, you really would not have anything that would represent unique expression. We would all just be trying to think the same. We would all be trying to do the same. We would all be trying to act the same. And it would be very boring very quickly. It's like looking at a bunch of androids. No, what makes life so special is the uniqueness, is the authenticity that we are. Authenticity can never be equal. You cannot have an equal authenticity because that would be completely contradictory to what authenticity means. For you to be authentic is for you to truly be one of a kind. to be genuine. So how could that genuine nature and authenticity that you are be equal? This is what we've been raised to believe, my friends. We're raised to believe that equality is the way of life, and it's not. Because none of us have been equal to each other. It's just the way it is. Show me another person in your life who is completely and totally equal to you. It's not possible. And I'm not talking about the human body. I'm not talking about how we function in this form. I'm not talking about what you're looking at materialistically that represents that nature of equality. Rather, you're looking at someone who is unique. You're looking at someone who is so truly, divinely authentic, whether they know it or not. Right? So, we have similar bodies. We have similar materialistic understandings and so forth. But that's still not equality. We've never experienced equality from one being to another. It's never happened. And I want you to absorb that for a moment. And if you don't believe me, you don't have to, right? You can certainly question that yourself. I'm not your God that's telling you have to believe me. Because again, that's me just going back into adolescent nonsense again, right? But this is just what I've realized. There has never been a person on this planet that has ever been equal to me. And I have never been with a person on this planet who I feel equal to them. Right? It's all authenticity. It's all uniqueness. It's all genuine nature. That is the beauty of life. And this is why I say when anyone tries to ridicule the idea of a civilization or a race or a very large group of beings who they've never talked to, they're going into the equality distortion, thinking that, well, if one of them's like that, all of them's like that. And that's what equality actually does. Equality is much more of a distortion than anything that's actually liberating. Because that is what causes people to profile and stereotype others. If this person's like this, then that person must be like that too. And they're all equal to each other and blah, 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 and they're all horrible. You see? That's the equality garbage. Rather, when I start looking at authenticity and uniqueness and the genuine nature of a being, I could never ever label that being. I could never profile them. I could never stereotype them in regards to some type of equal ground. Right? We have to be on some type of equal ground so I can stereotype or profile you. And that is basically something that would be close to a robotic mentality than anything else. So in conclusion, I'm sharing a lot of this information today to give you guys the idea of the shifting of the times, about what is so glorious and so beautiful that's happening on this planet, that is uniquely authentic, that is really going to bring you into, when you truly see it, into something that is awe-inspiring, into something that is expansive, into something that is beautiful. And even if I'm looking at the darkness itself is beautiful, right? If I'm just looking at the darkness like I need to shun away from it, like I feel like I have something in my eye, I'm never going to understand that nature of myself, because it is the darkness itself within you that shares in your authenticity. It is the light within you that shares in your authenticity, in your uniqueness, in your genuine nature. The light and the dark are what make up your authentic self. And if all you want to do is run away and feel like you're just going to be victimized by the elements of your life, then you do not understand life. Because you do not understand uniqueness, you do not understand authenticity, representing yourself, you're still caught up in the equality distortion. And that is what causes people to profile. To profile, to stereotype, to judge, to blame, all comes from equality rhetoric. Whereas one sees the uniqueness, the authenticity, the one-of-a-kind nature that you are, that everyone else is. Blame doesn't exist. Judgment doesn't exist. Profiling and stereotyping doesn't exist, because how could I do that to that which is truly unique? who is truly authentic. He is truly the essence of all that is good, all that is beautiful, all that is perfection. So I want you guys just to really look into this. Like I said, you don't have to buy into anything that I'm sharing here. You don't have to completely agree with me or agree with me whatsoever about what I'm talking about. But let it be something that you reflect on. Look into the nature of letting go of having to accuse, of having to profile, of having to stereotype things, particularly in that sense when you do not understand the authentic nature relating to that person, place, event, or thing. When you do not have that particular experience about even looking at that being, place, event, or thing, because that experience is not within you yet. Be careful of how you decide to treat life, because life is so brilliant. It is so absolutely blissful and expansive, and it will show you dark sides to yourself that are not meant to be feared, just only realized, so that when we go into correction, we honor that darkness of itself. It's because of that darkness that I had to go through that brought me into the realization that I now feel within myself at this moment. Beautiful, right? This again is something that no one really teaches. Very, very few do. To really look into the nature of authenticity, to look into the authenticity of everything that represents life. And when you start seeing it that way, you are going to see life in such a beautiful way that can't be described. And then this is helping you to move yourself into a greater recognition of who you are by looking at the uniqueness and authenticity and the true, genuine article of what life represents, to which you are a part. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll speak to you again in another perspective of the now. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Namaskar. May it be well with you. Take care.